where I will be talking today about telling your kids that Santa isn't real. The way I see it, there are 2 points where you could choose to do this. You could do it earlier on, kind of from the start, or you could do it later on if you choose to do the Santa game, as we call it in our family. So when we were brand new parents, like 17 years ago this January, of course, we didn't have to think about Santa like for the first couple of years, right? With a newborn, it's like whatever. However, by the time our firstborn was about maybe 3, and then all of a sudden she had twin brothers, and I had another bun in the oven with 4 kids under the age of 4, there was suddenly pressure, like a cultural expectation, because I grew up in a not particularly religious family, so did my husband. And it was just a cultural phenomenon to do the Santa thing. Like my parents signed gifts from Santa. We made Santa crafts at school. Like Santa was like the it. And yeah, there was Jesus and stuff like that. Everybody kind of peripherally knew that it was his birthday. I grew up going to Catholic school, my husband going to public school. But it wasn't really the it. We didn't get excited about Jesus's birthday. We got excited because Santa was coming on the 24th. Did I really believe it? And obviously there came a point when I was inducted into the truth, probably on the playground at school. I don't remember my parents ever sitting down and having any kind of heart to heart or talk with me. And eventually I did notice that the writing on the gifts, it said like to Tara from Santa, was identical to my father's handwriting. So that bubble goes burst. And like I said, never really talked about it with my parents. And we kind of kept it up because I had a sister who's about 4 years younger, and we kept it up for her. And eventually she figured it out. And well, she was the last, so that was that. I had a lot of mixed feelings growing up about it. And I realized not everybody's going to feel the same about that growing up. I remember distinctly by the time I was about 13, being very jaded about the world, about religion, about life, about everything. I mean, I'd been told systematically since I started going to school, even in Catholic school, that basically all there ever was cells. And if there was anything more majestic or transcended about the universe, it was wishful thinking at best. And that all I was a lump of cells and electricity. And when I died, that was it, lights out, nothing mattered. But you matter, but you don't matter. It was confusing. So for me, Santa wasn't real. Tooth Fairy wasn't real. Easter Bunny wasn't real. Guess who else wasn't real? Jesus wasn't real. It was just another myth that made you feel good, but wasn't real. And I was now, savvy enough to be like, no. I'm not going to fall for it this time. I'm not going to dare to believe that there's a God in heaven and that the Jesus, baby in a manger 2,000 years ago story who, so loved the world, he gave his only son, and whoever believes in him will not perish but have eternal life. No. You're not going to get me this time. I'm not going to get my heart broken and my hopes up just to get let down again. Again, I recognize not everybody is going to internalize, the big reveal that Santa isn't real, that my parents and my kind of culture collectively chose to lie about something they knew for a fact to be false. It's one thing if you don't really know for sure and you're teaching your children something and you find out later, oh, kids, turns out I was wrong because we homeschool. I'm all for, taking it back if it turns out, later information shows that I was wrong in my understanding of point of theology or maybe just how the world works or something like that. But Santa, my parents and my culture know for a fact to be a game. And I think that's putting it generously, that it's all just a game, because at some point, if you choose to play it like my parents did, that bubble's going to burst. And it's a question of who's going to tell your kids and how. So I was in this big family kind of moms group, not my group, but another 18,000 moms who homeschool from large families group. And some dear woman, I wonder if she knew what she was in for, had posted in the group, how do I tell my kids Santa isn't real? Kind of like face palm emoji. This girl, oh my gosh. Some of the comments, there was like 48 comments by the time I chimed in. Some of the comments were really ungracious. Some of them were talking about the issue rather than talking to a person. And I felt bad for her. I was like, did you know that you are about to get totally your head bit off by some women who have very strong feelings about like about doing Santa at all, about pagan roots of Christian. Some people have very strong feelings about some of the, the history of of Catholicism overlaying a commemorative holiday on top of the solstice holiday of pagans a couple thousand years ago. Like, this is a hot topic. It really reminds me of Halloween, where all of a sudden moms groups in particular can become hot battle zones of theology and opinion, and sometimes it can get really personal really fast. So I wrote to her, and here's pretty much what I said. And because I'm talking now, you can hear the tone in which I intended it to be delivered. Because I feel like when we're just writing electronically and commenting in groups, you don't get the benefit of tone. And even emojis don't always convey either the heat or the grace with which, we intend to share from our hearts. So how do you tell your kids that Santa isn't real? Like I said, it's kind of 2 points. And depending on where you are, by the time you're watching it live with me right now, or you're catching this years in the future, you could do it earlier if that's still an option, or you could do it a little later. And here are my thoughts on that. Because my husband and I really did have to wrestle this out. Like, how do we want to do it? Because for us, the seed of doubt was such a negative thing. It was actually easy for us to choose to just sidestep the whole Santa thing. And because we were first generation Christians, we were saved when we were 21, the majesty of Jesus, the incarnation, the resurrection, the beauty of all the songs like Silent Night, Oh Holy Night, Away in a Manger, they had taken on meaning that I had never even registered growing up. I mean, we sang Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer growing up in French, my French Catholic school I went to, but there was no wonder to it. Maybe there was a temporary thrill, just like eating candy gives you a temporary high, but there was nothing lasting that really satisfied. So we were so overcome by Christ and the beauty of the Christ mass, right? The heart, the reason of the season, that for us, it was very easy that we wanted to highlight Jesus is the reason. I also recognize there are people in my life who choose to do the Santa thing. And again, not knocking them, because I see it as a parental choice. I do also see, though, it's kind of risky. I'm gonna be honest and share with my heart. There's an element of risk, because this dear mom asked, eventually you're going to have to tell them the truth. And all of a sudden you're like, oh, geez, I meant it well. I meant it in fun. I meant it just to add some play and some joy to the season. And now I have to bring you down to earth and kind of tell you I lied. Ouch, right? So if you've gone that road, or you are seeing that you're going to face this soon, if you did choose to play the Santa game, as we call it, then I would recommend that when you choose to tell your kids, that you just do it in humility. You do it with, if you feel convicted, maybe an apology, so that they know that, where your heart was at, that you never intended to sow any kind of seeds of doubt between you as a parent and them as a child, that you meant it as a game, and you knew that eventually they were going to grow up and outgrow it, just like they would outgrow Paw Patrol eventually. And it was time for them to know that it was just a game. But here's where you can pivot and segue into the real truth. And I know you might have a moment where you're like, oh no, what if they don't believe me about the real truth, because I just basically misled them here? Are they going to believe me about the real truth? And you can say, listen, as you get older now, whatever age they're at, 7, 8, I don't know, when kids start to find out the truth about Santa, as you get older, you can check that Jesus really is the reason of the season. Don't just believe me. There's so much evidence. Listen, if you look into Santa, you're going to find it pretty quick it's not true, right? It was just like a Coca-Cola created marketing ploy, a couple generations back. It was really effective of taking the original Saint Nicholas personage, who's actually a historical figure from like 3rd century Europe. He was just like a guy who apparently gave gifts to the poor, and kind of developed the Saint Nicholas idea. And that's like, there's a whole history there you can share. But the modern day Santa, jolly red elf, fat guy in a white beard, sleigh, the reindeer, we see it in like all the kids shows that are available on the streaming channels. And I think what saddens me is that most of the point of those shows is to really tell children, Santa really, really is real. Really, really, really. And you just got to really, really believe. And I'm kind of like, seriously though, but you're setting them up for such a letdown. Such a letdown. Different kids are going to internalize that differently. But because I was one who internalized it really negatively. And it just added to my overall jadedness because I was growing up in a pretty nihilistic worldview, just by virtue of going to public school, Catholic school, and all that. Yeah. So if you choose to tell your kids early on and you just decide to go for it for fun, I'm not knocking you as a parent. I would recommend though that if it is earlier and early enough that you haven't gone that road or it's still pretty early, you could change course and you're feeling convicted, maybe a little conflicted about should I really be doing the Santa thing? Like I want to give my kids good gifts. That's beautiful. At the same time, I don't want to lie to them and I want them to trust me and believing when I tell them about things that really matter, like God and Jesus and real things, and not just like a little game that was just for fun. I don't want to undermine that trust. Then I would recommend if you're feeling conflicted, it's okay to change your mind now. And yeah, you might face some flack from grandparents and relatives who are like, don't be a downer. It's just for fun. If you're convicted about something, the Bible says clearly, like, you need to follow your conscience. Otherwise, it actually is sin. If you're convicted, like some early Christians were, that eating meat devoted to idols, it talks about in Corinthians, for them, it actually was sin. It was a means of stumbling, but it wasn't sin for everyone, but it was sin for them. You want to talk about it more, put a comment below. We can totally get into it. Here's the deal. It's okay if you choose to tell your kids about Santa. Just know there's an element of risk in that game. And we chose to tell our kids, yeah, there's this make-believe guy, kind of like Paw Patrol, kind of like Star Wars. It's all make-believe. And you might see, we've gone to some Santa Claus parades. And we're like, they get all excited, Santa, he's on top of the fire truck, And we're like, yeah, it's a man in a costume. It's a nice guy giving out candy canes to kids. It's just a game. It's just a costume. It's just for fun. We don't knock people who get into it with some kind of weird Christian pride being like, we would never, ever, ever. I was like, yeah, that's really helpful, Christian. Instead, we just presented it to our children as a game. And we don't really do it. Like we don't sign gifts from Santa. Instead, we just sign gifts from mom and dad, and we highlight Jesus is the reason for season 1 year, actually. We did a birthday cake, like a 9 by 13 frosted chocolate cake with red icing, because the kids were about maybe 6 kids under 6 at the time. And we wrote happy birthday, Jesus. And on the 25th, we stuck some candles in it. All the kids helped us blow it out. And we ate cake for breakfast, like full sugar, full flour, the whole 9 yards. They loved it. And my kids, the older ones anyway, still remember it. There's enough beauty and majesty in Christmas. I don't really think you need Santa to make it any more special than it is as a Christian family, at least, as parents who are Christian and leading in that, exposing our children to the gospel and to the beauty of the real story of the world, of the universe, of reality itself. So I hope this has equipped you about, giving some food for thought wherever you're at in your parenting journey. If you're a little earlier on, maybe you're kind of halfway through, and you are wrestling with this question. You see the moms groups kind of lighting up because it can get spicy this time of year. And sometimes there can be some mud flinging, and that can be sometimes really unhelpful to think about it, to talk about it. If you want to, discuss it more or think about it more, but you'd like to do it in a gracious environment where you're not going to get piled on by fellow moms online, feel free to jump into the Big Family Moms community. I've got it linked in today's video. It's a place of grace where we're overcoming struggles and growing God's grace together as big family moms. If you're outnumbered by your own kids, you are by definition a big family mom, as far as I'm concerned, and you're more than welcome in that group. So I hope this has blessed you today, giving you some food for thought, maybe some encouragement. And I'd love to connect with you in your group. So feel free to pop on over and check it out and see if it's a good space for you as a big family mom. So God bless you today. I'll see you on Wednesday. Take care.